they're already ready to use your product. But mostly it's not that way. Think about all the things that you've seen people launch and the technologies you've seen people launch that took forever to catch on, no matter, even if they were much better. And think about the few that haven't. I mean, you think about how quickly people move to using their, thinking of the thing they keep thinking of their phone as an extension of the internet. My detail-oriented alter ego that sits in my pocket now. Mm-hmm. And what a natural thing that was, even though nobody really thought about it that way beforehand. They didn't know that they needed it. So there's a few cases like this, and I kind of think, it's a psychology thing. What makes that the exception to the rule? But most of the time, if what's going to make you a lot of money is because you have an easier way of doing something, so everyone's just going to find you, there's a lot of money it's going to take to persuade people to come your way, and it's going to require a system and a lot of things you have to solve. The other one I'm going to get to is scalability. So, okay, you can do it for 5 people, but can you do it for 5 million people? What happens when it has to get a lot bigger? And in a lot of cases, it means that you have to raise a lot more money at that point. Now, if you have to raise a lot more money at that point, you may wind up diluting yourself almost all the way out of your company if you have to do it too quickly. So, in what ways? I mean, there's businesses that I like. If you look at Amazon and eBay, for example, right? When Amazon had to go from, say, 100,000 customers to 100 million customers, the amount that they had to invest in the warehouse and logistics and being able to have everything everywhere and customer returns and all of that stuff, I can't even imagine that being my life and my business having to solve those problems. Those are ridiculous problems to be able to solve. I'm in awe of them. eBay, on the other hand, is I want to sell something, you want to buy something? Okay, let's trade your money for my thing. And eBay's just in the middle exchanging that information. I mean, honestly, I think that eBay could have gone from 1,000 users to 100 million users and maybe hired 5 more people. Right? All they need is just a computer that can move more of that information together. Now that you have the cloud, I mean, that becomes very easy. So from a scalability stuff, I mean, to me, these things are on opposite ends of the spectrum on scalability. When you hit that inflection point where all of a sudden everybody wants to work with you, can you ride that thing all the way up, or do you hit the wall and leave it to somebody big to go and take the bulk of the market from you? So those are, I almost all the time, that's the big design flaw in the business plans that I see. So any questions on that or anything else?
That's good advice for e-games
Excellent.
coming up.
Yeah, excellent. Wait, was that the 4th thing?
Yeah, that was so competitive strategy, scalability, complexity, and market need, right?
Oh, yeah.
Counting on a simple market. So I'm gonna stay pat with 4 today. Yeah.
I'll remember those.
Yeah.
This will be on the test next week.
I don't want to be responsible for that. Well, thanks for the extended time and most everyone hanging out. I appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing all your.
Thank you for taking your time.
I would like to. There's something I'm trying to do right now. I have in my head that we could use a Kickstarter event at State where we fill an auditorium. Kickstarter-like, right? But where we fill an auditorium with a bunch of people that would be willing to put $1,000 to a few $1,000s in an idea to get it to the next stage, if enough other people were willing to as well. And so it would look like maybe at least 6, maybe 10 presentations of a brief period, and a bunch of people in the room where after seeing the presentation, they basically text a number I give them with the amount of money that they'd be willing to put in it. And if that number gets over 10,000 or whatever the right number needs to be, then it becomes real and it becomes a convertible debt. Basically, it's like they're loaning the money, and whenever you get a big investment, that money goes to buy the stock at that level of the next big investment minus a discount. And what I would do is what I'm thinking is if I can get that 10,000 on the rule of halves, I can find somebody out there who's willing to match that 10,000 with their 10,000. Because they want to help entrepreneurs, but they don't want to have to shuffle through all of them to figure out which ones are worth funding. And if I can say, I've got a way to get, I'm only going to ask you to fund the ones that 10 people would put their own money into on the spur of the moment based on the quality of the idea. I think I can find somebody to match that. Some of that money, in order to have a business, you need to be incorporated and you need to have your stock and have your legal business. And I can get a lawyer who's willing, for the people who get that, I can find lawyers who are willing to do that legal work for a little bit of equity sometime when it gets funded. I can find people who are willing to provide office space or other operating space to be in. And I can probably find a couple other goodies like prototyping when necessary. But what I want to do is, within the university, and I feel like where we were, was that you kind of have an idea, but you're in this middle ground where you're not ready to turn down the job offer or sort of move to the level of taking it seriously. And how do you get past that phase where I have enough runway that I can actually take my shot at my idea? And I think this is a way to do it. And I think that there's a large number of people who are NC State alumni who would love to know what entrepreneurs are interested in doing in the area. So I'm turning over I was going to say I'm turning over rock, but that's completely the wrong analogy because that's not where people are. But I'm shaking the bushes. That's what I'm doing. I'm shaking the trees to see what falls out. But I need to find enough ideas I feel like I can put in front of that audience to make work. And there may be some fairly sophisticated people, but there may also be hog farmers, and who knows who shows up within that. And so people, not that they're not sophisticated too, but there could be people who are sort of tech entrepreneurs themselves, and there could be people who are home builders and other folks that are maybe not as quick to grasp, but very interested in what's going on. But I'm really interested to see what happens if you do this, and it's kind of meta entrepreneurship, right? It's sort of entrepreneuring about entrepreneuring. It's a little thing that I'd like to see try, and if it catches on, it's replicable. It's scalable. It doesn't require a lot of work on my part because I can put enough other people around it to make it happen. But it's putting the right pieces together to make something work. So if you have, when I finish in a second, if you have something that you're interested in doing that you think is appropriate, and I'd like to do this in May, so I kind of need to know probably by the first or second week of March, I need to know whether in fact I have sufficient content to start scheduling a venue and talking about it and spinning it up. So I don't have a lot of time to figure this out, but if you have something, I can either, if you have to go, I can give you a card and you can sort of give me what you have in mind, or if you have a friend that knows something, let them, tell them they need to get a hold of me. But I know they're out here, and I've talked to, I know who the Fast 15 are, I know who's working in tech, and I know, I know the EEP project, so if you're in one of those, I already know about you. But outside of that, I need a few others. And it could be somebody who went to State 15 years ago. It could be somebody who went to Carolina, but it's a State technology. To me, if State has some bragging rights associated with it, this thing makes it, then that's the criteria. I don't really, it's a beautiful thing about doing it outside of the university structure. It's just, we can make our own rules on this, figure out a way to make it work. So, let me know what you think, and if not, have a good night, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you.